We'll continue our classes. Vaisesika Prabhu will be continuing on the discussion where he left, and he'll answer your questions more. And can we just quickly, do that? Yeah. In meanwhile, Pooja, you want to sing a couple of Hare Krishna? Prabhu is just coming.
Oh, I have to play, but I'll try.
This service is provided in high definition by freeconferencecallhd.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound. Access code accepted. There are 2 participants in this conference. This conference is being recorded. To stop, your conference recording has stopped.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
All callers are muted.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Tahan vistarita hoya pale prema pa. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari jal. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari jal. Tahan vistarita hoy pale prema pa. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari jal. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari jal. Tahan vistarita hoya pale prema pao. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari jal. Narya nagari nitai neche neche gaire. Narya nagari nitai neche neche gaire. Narya nagari nitai neche neche gaire. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Pate Achinam Hatta Jivera Karan. Narya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Sharavan Janhe, Sharavan Janhe. Shadavan Janhe, Shadavan Janhe. Prabhu Ragnai Bai Abhimabi Diksha. Ragnai Bai Magi Hati Diksha. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. A comment. Commento.
Actually, when we were starting with surrender in the beginning, and then when this girl Samyukta comes, and I was looking into the meaning, and the Hindi meaning of Samyukta is united. So I was thinking it's so auspicious that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the union of Radha and Krishna, and what Mahaprabhu is showing his hands is to pointing his feet, and we were talking about surrender. And I was thinking surrender can be broken into, Mr. Sir, you please come under my lotus feet. And also the second thing I was looking at was surrender also means, sir in Hindi means head. So, and under is English. So, put your head under my lotus feet. And that's what Lord Gauranga is telling everybody, So the Utsav deities is doing kirtan, and the large vigrahas are, requesting or, telling people, Jiva souls to come and take shelter and I'll take care of you.
Thank you very much. I'll never be the same after that. That's in the verse I quoted earlier from Karabhajana Muni, he said, Brityartiham pranatapala babavdi potam. Vande Mahapurushate Charanadavindam. He's talking about the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. And he says that they're a boat. They'll take you across the ocean of birth and death if you just accept those two lotus feet as the boat for your shelter. And since Malati brought up the pastime of the Digvijay Pandit, I'm going to read to you the extended version from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. This is from chapter 13 in the Adikanda. Jai Jai Dvijakul Deep Gaura Chandra, Jai Jai Bhakti Goshti Hridai Ananda. All glories to Sri Gaurachandra, the shining light of the family of Brahmanas. All glories to the Lord who increases the happiness in the hearts of his devotees. All glories to the Lord of Govinda, the doorkeeper. O Lord, please glance mercifully on the living entities. All glories to the crest jewel of teachers and the king of Brahmanas. All glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. In this way, the Lord of Vaikuntha enjoyed his scholastic pastimes by vanquishing the scholar's pride. Navadvip was full of millions of learned scholars, each of whom had mastered various scriptures. Bhattacharyas, Chakravartis, Mishras, and Acharyas had no occupation other than teaching. These scholars were all independent and so victorious in debating scriptures that they disregarded persons as learned as Lord Brahma. The Lord constantly rebuked these scholars who had to directly or indirectly hear those taunts. Nevertheless, not one of them was able to counter the Lord's challenges. They were so frightened on seeing the Lord that they would humbly try to avoid him. Whoever the Lord spoke with would become his staunch follower. Everyone on the banks of the Ganges knew well that the Lord was most intelligent from his very childhood. Within their hearts, they knew that the Lord could not be defeated in argument. Therefore, they naturally became frightened when they saw the Lord, and they were obliged to accept subordination to him. Nevertheless, the influence of the illusory energy is such that no one was able to recognize him. No one can possibly recognize the Lord unless and until he reveals himself. The Lord is eternally merciful to the living entities in every respect, yet due to the influence of his illusory energy, everyone remained ignorant of his identity. In this way, Gaurachandra bewildered everyone as he enjoyed his scholastic pastimes in Navadvip. In the meantime, a proud champion of learning arrived in Navadvip. He was a staunch devotee of goodness. He was a staunch devotee of goddess Saraswati. By chanting her mantra, he had won her favor. Due to the Brahmin's great fortune, she appeared before him and blessed him to conquer the three worlds. What is the difficulty for her to bless one who has become champion of learning, when simply by her merciful glance one achieves devotional service to Lord Vishnu? After directly receiving the benediction of goddess Saraswati, The Brahmana traveled from province to province, defeating the local scholars wherever he went. All the scriptures resided on the tip of his tongue. There was no one in the world who could answer his challenge. Many scholars were not even able to understand his questions, so he easily conquered the scholars wherever he went. He then heard about the glories of Navadvip, wherein endless learned scholars resided. Thus, after conquering all other provinces, the champion scholar came to Navadvip, along with his opulent entourage, which included horses and elephants. As a result, a loud commotion arose in every house and every assembly of learned scholars in Nadia. People everywhere were heard saying, "Oh, a champion scholar has come to Navadvip with a certificate of victory from scholars all over the country." Purport: the word Jayapatra refers to a certificate of conquest that a party who has lost in battle of arguments or test of scholarship awards to the victorious party. That devotee on Sunday night had one of those Jayapatra she was carrying around, didn't she? The little trophy? She won a debate trophy. That was her Jayapatra. This is proof of the winning party's superior scholarship. Now she's going out to conquer the other people in the rest of the country. When all the learned scholars of Navadvip heard that he was favored by Saraswati, they began to worry. Of all places of learning throughout Jambudvip, Navadvip surpasses all. If this Digvijay is victorious in such a place as this, then scholars all over the world will condemn us. Yet, who has the ability to debate with one who has received the blessings of Saraswati? Since Saraswati resides on his tongue, how can a human being debate with him? Thousands of great Bhattacharyas left their duties out of anxiety. All over Navadvip, people were heard saying, "Now we'll understand the power of our knowledge." The students went and informed their teacher, Gauranga, of all these incidents. A Digvijay who has been blessed by Saraswati and who has conquered scholars throughout the world has come with his certificate of victory. He has arrived in Navadvip surrounded by elephants, horses, palanquins, and many followers. He has come to Navadvip seeking an opponent. Otherwise, he demands a certificate of victory from the scholars of Navadvip. Hearing the words of his students, the jewel-like Gauranga smiled and began to describe the nature of the Supreme Lord. Listen, dear brothers, the Supreme Lord never tolerates false pride. Whenever the Lord sees someone proud of some personal quality, he certainly removes the cause of that pride. The nature of both the tree laden with fruit and the man decorated with good qualities is that they bow down with humility. You must have heard of the great Digvijayas of the past like Hai, Nahusha, Vena, Bana, Naraka, and Ravana. Try to think whose pride was not smashed. The Supreme Lord never tolerates anyone's false ego. Therefore you will see this Digvijay's scholastic pride vanquished here in Navadvip. After saying this, Nimai smiled. Then in the evening he took his students to the bank of the Ganges. After sprinkling some Ganges water on his head and offering obeisances, Lord Gauranga sat down on the bank with his students. As the students sat around the Lord in various groups, it created an unprecedented scene. The Lord jubilantly engaged in discussing Varnashram Dharma and scriptural topics on the bank of the Ganges. Though he did not say anything, the Lord thought, how shall I defeat this Digvijay? This Brahmana has become most proud because he thinks there is no one in the world to oppose him. If I defeat him in an assembly, it would be equal to death for him. Everyone would belittle him. They would plunder his belongings, and he would die in lamentation. Therefore I will defeat him in a private place, so that his pride will be destroyed, but he won't be hurt. While the Lord was thinking in this way, night fell and the Digvijay arrived at that spot. It was a clear full moon night, and the Ganges looked most enchanting. As the Lord sat with his students, his attractive form was unmatched throughout innumerable universes. A smile decorated the Lord's moon-like face, and his beautiful eyes showered merciful glances. His teeth defeated the luster of a string of pearls, and his reddish lips resembled the color of the rising sun. He was full of compassion, and all the limbs of his body were delicate. His head was adorned with beautiful curly black hair. His dress was divine, his neck resembled that of a lion, and his shoulders were like those of an elephant. His body was very large, and his attractive chest was adorned by Lord Ananta in the form of a Brahmin's thread. An enchanting mark of tilak decorated his forehead, and his beautiful arms reached to his knees. The Lord wore his cloth like a sannyasi, and he sat with his right foot on his left thigh. As the Lord explained the scriptures, he established correct statements as incorrect and incorrect statements as correct. All his students sitting around him in groups created an enchanting scene. Seeing that wonderful scene, Digvijay was astonished and thought, "Is this Nimai Pandit?" Digvijay remained incognito as he gazed steadily on the Lord's beautiful form. He then asked a student, "What is his name?" And the student replied, "He is the famous Nimai Pandit." The best of the Brahmins then offered his obeisances to the Ganges and entered the Lord's assembly. Seeing him, the Lord slightly smiled as he offered him a seat with great respect. Although the Digvijaya was very brave by nature and a champion of learning besides, he was nevertheless frightened on seeing the Lord. The power of the Supreme Lord's natural characteristic is such that the very sight of him produces fear. After exchanging a few words of introduction, the Lord began to sportingly inquire from him. The Lord said, "There's no limit to your poetic ability. There is nothing that you are unable to describe. Please recite some of the glories of the Ganges, for by hearing such glories, everyone's sins are destroyed." Hearing the Lord's request, the Digvijaya immediately began to describe the glories of the Ganges. Who can fathom the countless verses that Brahmin so quickly recited? The Digvijaya's recitation was like the deep rumbling of clouds. Since Saraswati personally resided on the tongue of Digvijaya, whatever he spoke was authorized. No human being had the ability to refute his speech, for no scholar could even understand him. The Lord's thousands of students all became speechless on hearing these descriptions. "Ram, Ram, how wonderful," they marveled. "How can an ordinary human being speak like this?" The most wonderful words and literary ornaments in the world were all used in the Digvijaya's recitation. Even those who were fully conversant in the scriptures had great difficulty understanding his words. The Digvijaya continually recited in this amazing way for 3 hours without coming to an end. When the Digvijaya finally finished his recitation, Shri Gaurasundar smiled and spoke. "The purport of your words are so exalted that unless you explain them, no one can understand. Therefore, please explain a portion of your recitation, for whatever meaning is explained by you must be accepted." Hearing the Lord's enchanting words, the best of the Brahmins began to explain. But as soon as he began to explain a verse, the Lord immediately pointed out faults in the beginning, middle, and end of the verse. The Lord said, "According to the scriptures, all the words and literary ornaments that you have used are far from correct. But please tell us, what was your intended meaning of these ornaments?" asked Lord Gauranga. Digvijaya, the great son of Saraswati, was unable to properly explain, for his intelligence had left him. Whatever little attempt he made to defend himself was refuted by Lord Gaurasundar. It appeared that the Digvijaya's intelligence had taken leave of him, for he didn't even know what he was saying. The Lord said, "Leave this verse and recite another." But the Digvijaya was unable to recite like before. It is not unusual that Digvijaya was bewildered in front of the Lord, because even the Vedas are bewildered in the presence of the Lord. Lord Brahma, Lord Ananta, and Lord Shiva create, maintain, and annihilate innumerable universes. When even they are bewildered before the Lord, what is surprising if this Brahmana was bewildered? Unlimited universes are bewildered by Maya, the shadow of Lakshmi, Saraswati, and other internal potencies of the Lord. Yet she is also bewildered in the presence of the Lord, and therefore she always stands behind him. When the compiler of the Vedas and even Anantashesha are bewildered in the presence of the Lord, then what is surprising if the Digvijay is bewildered? It is impossible for ordinary living entities to understand the activities of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his activities are transcendently glorious. In fact, the activities performed by the Supreme Lord are all meant for the deliverance of the conditioned souls. As the Digvijay faced defeat, the Lord's students were on the verge of laughing. The Lord, however, forbade them from laughing and sweetly spoke to the Brahmin. You please go home for today, and tomorrow we will discuss some more. You must be tired after your long recitation, and it's getting late. Please go take rest. The Lord's behavior was so gentle that whoever was defeated by him felt no distress. After defeating each of the teachers in Navadvip, the Lord satisfied them with his sweet behavior. The Lord continued, "Let us go home today. Then after looking at your books, come tomorrow and answer my questions." Even after defeating someone, the Lord did not insult them, and thus everyone was pleased with him. Such were the pastimes of the Lord. That is why all the learned scholars of Navadvip were so affectionate to the Lord. As the Lord returned home with his students, the Digvijay felt great shame. In distress, the Brahmana thought, "I've been personally blessed by Saraswati. Till now, I've not met a single person, whether a scholar of Nyaya, Shankya, Patanjali, Mimamsa, Vaisesika, or Vedanta, who could even compete with me, and what to speak of defeating me. This Brahmana merely teaches children's grammar, and he defeated me. This is certainly an act of providence." It appears that Saraswati's benediction is proven false, which awakens doubts in my mind. Otherwise, have I committed some offense at her feet? Is that why my intelligence was diminished? I must find out the cause of my defeat. Thinking in this way, the Brahmin began chanting his mantra. After chanting for some time, the distressed Brahmin fell asleep, and in a short time Saraswati appeared before him in a dream. Goddess Saraswati glanced mercifully on the fortunate Brahmana and confidentially spoke as follows. "O best of the Brahmanas, listen as I disclose to you the secrets of the Vedas. If you disclose these topics to anyone, you will meet a quick death. Know for certain that he by whom you were defeated is the Lord of innumerable universes. I am an eternal maidservant at his lotus feet, and I'm embarrassed to appear before him. The illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her possession. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. O Brahmana, although I speak through your tongue, in front of him I have no power. What to speak of me, Lord Anantashesh, who explains the Vedas with thousands of mouths, and who is worshipped by Brahma and Shiva. He is also bewildered in his presence." Can you turn on Ragini, please? He is the supreme Brahman, the eternal, pure, complete, and inexhaustible Lord who is situated in everyone's heart. Fruit of actors, mental speculation, material knowledge, pious and impious activities, direct and indirect perception, and more than I am able to say, all these are created and destroyed by that Lord you just met in the form of a Brahmin. Know for certain that everyone, including Lord Brahma, enjoys happiness and distress according to his will alone. Listen, dear Brahmana, all incarnations such as Matsya and Kurma are non-different from him. In the form of Lord Varaha, he rescued the earth, and in the form of Nrsimha, he protected Prahalad. In the form of Vaman, he is the life and soul of Bali. The Ganges appears from his lotus feet. This Lord appeared at Ayodhya and then killed Ravana as one of his innumerable pastimes. He is known as the son of both Vasudeva and Nanda, and now he has appeared as the son of a Brahmana to enjoy scholastic pastimes. Do the Vedas know this incarnation of the Lord? Who has the power to know unless the Lord reveals himself? The title of Digvijay is not the real fruit of your chanting mantras to worship me. The real fruit of your chanting is that you have now directly seen the Lord of innumerable universes. Therefore, O Brahman, go immediately and surrender yourself at his lotus feet. Don't ignore my words by considering this only a dream. I am controlled by your chanting and have therefore informed you of that which is unknown to the Vedas. Speaking these words, Saraswati disappeared, and the most fortunate Brahmana woke up. Immediately after getting up, the Brahmana went in the early morning to the Lord's residence. The Brahmana came and offered his obeisances to the Lord, who picked up the Brahmana and embraced him. The Lord said, "O Brahmana, why have you come so early? What is the reason for this behavior?" The Brahmana replied, "It is all due to your merciful glance." The Lord said, "You are the champion of learning. Why are you treating me like this?" The Digvijay replied, "Please listen. O King of the Brahmanas, just by worshipping you, all one's activities become successful. You are the Supreme Lord Narayan, but you have appeared in Kali Yuga in the form of a Brahmana. Who has the power to recognize you?" Doubts arose in my mind when you asked me questions that I was unable to answer. O Lord of the Vedas, confirm that you are... O Lord, all the Vedas confirm that you are devoid of pride. Now I have seen this with my own eyes. There is no doubt about it. Although you have defeated me 3 times, you have maintained my prestige. Is this possible for anyone other than the Supreme Lord? Therefore, you are certainly Lord Narayan. I met with innumerable scholars wherever I have gone. Gauda, Trihut, Delhi, Kashi, Gujarat, Vijayanagar, Kanchipur, Anga, Bengal, Andhra, Orissa. What to speak of refuting my statements, none of these scholars had even the power to understand them. Though I am such a scholar, I was still unable to establish my conclusions before you. Where did all my intelligence go? This is not an astonishing achievement for you are the Lord of Saraswati. She personally told me this. I came to Navadvip at a most auspicious time. Although I was drowning in the dark well of material life, I somehow saw you. I was bewildered by nescience and material desires, and I cheated myself as I wandered throughout the world, forgetful of my constitutional position. I've met you by some great fortune. Now please deliver me by your merciful glance. It is your nature to engage in the welfare of others. It is your nature to engage in the welfare of others. Indeed, there is no shelter or source of compassion other than you. O Lord, please instruct me in such a way that I may have no material desires in my heart. Hena upadesh more kaha mahashai aro jena durvasana chitte nahi hai. After speaking many plaintive words in this way, the Digvijay humbly offered prayers to the Lord. Hearing the Brahman's submissive words, Sri Gaurasundar smiled and replied, "Listen, O best of the Brahmins, you are most fortunate, for Saraswati resides on your tongue. Conquering the world is not the proper use for knowledge. The proper use of knowledge is to worship the Supreme Lord. Try to understand, when one gives up his body, he cannot take wealth and reputation with him. That is why devotees renounce material endeavors and serve the Supreme Lord with firm determination. Therefore, O Brahmana, give up all materialistic association and immediately begin to worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Up to the time of your death, serve Krishna with confidence. Know without doubt that the goal of knowledge is to fix one's mind on Krishna's lotus feet. The best advice I can give you is that devotional service to the Supreme Lord Vishnu is the only substantial truth throughout the three worlds. After saying this, the Lord embraced the Brahmana in satisfaction. Being embraced by the Lord of Vaikuntha, the Brahmana was freed from all material bondage. Then the Lord said, O Brahmana, give up your pride, worship Krishna, and be merciful to all living entities. Prabhu bole, Viprashab dhamba parihari, bhajagya Krishna sarva bhuta doya khari. Prabhu bole. Prabhu bole. Viprashab dhamba parihari, bhajagya Krishna sarva bhute doya khari. Then the Lord said, O Brahmana, give up your pride, worship Krishna, and be merciful to all living entities. That's a way of life. What Saraswati told you in confidence should not be told to anyone. If one discloses topics that are more confidential than those of the Vedas, then know for certain that his duration of life is diminished and his advancement in the next life will be checked. After receiving the Lord's instructions, the best of the Brahmins offered repeated obeisances to the Lord. Then, after offering repeated obeisances to the Lord, the Brahmana departed in great satisfaction. On receiving the Lord's instructions, renunciation, knowledge, and devotional service immediately manifested in the body of the Brahmana. The Digvijay's pride was immediately destroyed, and he became more humble than a blade of grass. He then gave up all his elephants, horses, palanquins, wealth, and whatever other assets he had in charity to suitable persons. In this way, the Digvijay continued his travels as a detached person. Such are the pastimes of Sri Gaurasundar. The natural characteristics of his mercy is that a person renounces even the position of a king to take the position of a mendicant. The prime example of this in Kali Yuga is Sri Dabir Kash, who left a kingdom to live in the forest. Even when Krishna's servants attain that for which everyone in the world works hard, they easily give it up. One finds happiness in kingly opulences only when he does not know the glorious happiness derived from devotional service. Leaving talks of happiness from kingly opulence far aside, the devotees of Krishna consider even the happiness derived from liberation as significant. Nothing is obtained without the Lord's merciful glance. Therefore the Vedas enjoin one to worship the Supreme Lord. The Digvijay was thus delivered from material life. Such are the wonderful narrations of Sri Gaurasundar. Soon everyone in Navadvip heard that Sri Gaurasundar defeated the Digvijay. People were all astonished, and they said, Nimai Pandit is a great scholar. He has even defeated the Digvijay. We have never heard of such a learned scholar as Nimai. The pride of Nimai Pandit is justified, and now his reputation has spread. Someone said, if this Nimai studies logic, he will certainly become a Bhattacharya. Someone else said, oh brother, let us all together award him the title of Bharisingha. Purport. Bharisingha is the name of one Vaishnav from the line of Ramanuja. He was like a lion in destroying the philosophy of monism. It is to be understood that previously, whenever a scholar defeated another scholar, he was awarded the title of Bharisingha. We should have the MSF of Bharisingha. Yet, even after seeing this, the influence of the Lord's illusory energy is such that people still do not understand him. In this way, everyone in Navadvip broadcasts the pure glories of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the residents of Navadvip, who had the ability to see all these pastimes. Whoever hears the topic of Lord Gauranga defeating Digvijay is never defeated anywhere. Whoever hears the enchanting scholastic pastimes of Lord Gauranga will certainly become his servant. Accepting Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Tahan vistaritaya pale prema pa. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari ja. Ihan mali sheche nitya shravanari ja. Yes, Damodar, Vamsidhari Prabhu.
I think while reading Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj repeatedly says that in the Adi Leela I have not expanded too much. I have covered primarily on the Anta Leela, which I have not yet read it. But reading Adi Leela, it has so much of more details, like, where Mahaprabhu, goes 5 kinds of mistake, I think, number of mistakes, number of, good things, and then a lot of details were there in that, like, why are you Shri Lakshmi Devi and, Shri repetition and all. So I'm little, why Vrindavan Das Thakur was saying that, Adi Leela, I have kept it very small, but I think the number of verses in, I think, chapter Kishora Leela, it's very large, around 200, but here it is pretty condensed.
For Digvijay.
They were saying like he's stunned and, he's not able to say anything, and then Mahaprabhu is like, giving him all the details of the faults in that, one verse. Yeah, I was little...
Right, that's true. Yeah, well, some of the pastimes are more expanded than others. I think that yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Not at all.
In one of the sentences, there was this about the different systems. There was Sankhya, Jnana, and Vaisesika also was mentioned. What does it mean? Your name?
Vaisesika? Well, as a philosophy, it's a detailed analysis of the particles. Pardon? Yeah, Vedic atomic theory. How, like particle theory, how different kinds of particles have different weights and natures, and when they come together, they form different kinds of external bodies and things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
So why is your name Vaisesika? Well, it has other meanings also. Vaisesika comes from the root word Vishesha, which means specific, special, unique. And so it's a name for Krishna also, which means that his everything he creates is unique. In fact, there's no one thing in the universe, no one particle that's the same as another. No one living entity that's the same as another.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Could you pass the mic?
I have a question here, like Digvijay Pandit, he knows the Vedas and Shastras, so still he was not able to find like the Mahaprabhu is incarnation. And as per like I heard like Mahaprabhu is incarnation of Krishna is already like described in the Vedas, like he going to be like golden form and he's like Satimata's Putra. So that way like 2 indication is there in the Shastra. So where that indications are exactly, and why the Digvijay Pandit is not able to know that?
Where all the indications in the Shastra?
Yeah, where is exactly?
Well, there's a purport we can look at in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Prabhupada loads the purport up with various citations from the Shastra about Lord Chaitanya being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Does anybody recall where that purport is? Because I can't remember right at the top of my brain right now. But we can find that for you. They're all compiled in one place.
Sure. Okay.
And the second, why wasn't the Digvijay able to understand?
Didn't understand that, like 2 indications.
Well, you could also ask the same question, why wasn't Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is a Bhattacharya? You notice that the residents of Navadvip, sort of in their innocence, they were saying, if he keeps this up, he's going to be a Bhattacharya pretty soon. We'll give him that title. It's a really high title. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya already had the title, and he couldn't understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. And Gopinath Acharya, who came along, said, because you don't have his mercy. Because he was arguing, when Mahaprabhu first came to Jagannath Puri and fainted in the temple, Sarvabhauma happened to be there by the Lord's arrangement, and he had his disciples pick him up and bring him to his house. Actually, in one description in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he said it's like when a row of ants, they pick up something and they pass it along. So there's so many people, and they were passing his body from one to the next all the way to the house. And he took care of Mahaprabhu there in his home until the followers of Mahaprabhu came there, as they had been walking behind him. You remember, because at Tribanga Danda, there was a incident where Lord Ananda broke his danda, and Mahaprabhu became angry, apparently angry. He was pleased, actually. But he broke his danda, and then Mahaprabhu said, that's enough. I don't want you guys coming with me anymore. This, you can all stay, either go in front or behind me, but you're not coming with me. So they all came behind him. So they came afterwards, and Gopinath Acharya was there telling Sarvabhauma Acharya, who wanted to know, who is this beautiful sannyasi? He said, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhattacharya was, come on, There's no incarnation in this age. And what are you talking about? Speak by Shastra and so forth. So there's a debate there that goes on, but still Bhattacharya doesn't get it. And he asked Gopinath, how do you know how did you come to know he's the Supreme Personality? He's got to have his mercy. And when you have his mercy, then you'll also understand. And later we see that he did get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he became his devotee, which was big news. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Naham prakashya sarvasya yoga maya samavrita mudo yam nabijanati lokamam jamavyayam. That by the coverings of both Mahamaya and Yogamaya, one doesn't understand Krishna. So nobody understands Krishna. Teni Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaya Muhyanti Yatsurayaha. Even the great demigods and sages, they get bewildered about who Krishna is. And in the material world, people are covered by Mahamaya, the external feature, therefore they can't see Krishna. And in the spiritual world, they're covered by Yogamaya, so they can't understand his actual position. Even Balaram, in the pastime of Brahma Vimohana Lila, in the Brahma Mohana Lila, the absolute preeminence of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God is established because Balaram is his first expansion. But in that Leela, we find that Balaram couldn't figure out what had happened with these expansions that Krishna made of the cowherd boys and the calves. You know this, right? After Brahma had stolen away the calves and cowherd boys, Krishna expanded himself into identical forms. And no one knew what was going on. And Balaram kept seeing wonderful things happening, like everyone in the village was 10 times more affectionate towards their children than ever before, if you can imagine such a thing. And then the cows and the bulls, they became affectionate towards their calves who had already been weaned off of their association, and they came running down the hill in such an enthusiastic way that Balaram was thinking, there's something going on around here. And at first he thought maybe it's some trick of a Rakshasa. And then he thought maybe it's some kind of mystic yogi. And different layers of Yogamaya were being removed, or I should say Krishna was removing various layers of Yogamaya until Balaram actually could see that, it was Krishna who was doing it. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this pastime shows how even Balaram, who's his first expansion, no different from Krishna except in mood, which is that he's the servant, then he can't see. So what to speak of an insignificant scholar of this world who's puffed up? And really he couldn't see because he was proud. And there are so many scholars of the Vedas that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita are maya prita jnana. Their knowledge is stolen because of their pride. And they think they're very intelligent, but they can't see Krishna until they become humble.
I like this purport from the 6th chapter, 1st canto, where Narada Muni is, conversing with Vyasadeva, and he says that how, he got this vision of the Lord, but after a moment it got lost. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says, there is no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before our vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. The sun rises out of his own accord. So also the Lord is pleased to be present out of his causeless mercy. One should simply await the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service of the Lord. Narada Muni thought that the Lord could be seen again by the same mechanical process which was successful in the first attempt. But in spite of his utmost endeavor, he could not make the second attempt successful. The Lord is completely independent of all obligations. He can simply be bound by the tie of unalloyed devotion, nor is he visible or perceivable by our material senses. When he pleases, being satisfied with the sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he may be seen out of his own accord.
Beautiful. And can you read the sentence again where it said one should simply go on with one's service?
One should simply await the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service of the Lord.
Nice. One should simply go on, await the opportune moment and go on discharging one's duty. I was reading the other day in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam about the story of Ajamil, and a couple of very interesting things I think you'd like to hear about. Oh, all right. So one thing is that regarding those who are chanting the holy name and who are getting this powerful result of chanting, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was saying that you don't always see the result. Even the chanter doesn't always see the result immediately for several reasons. One reason is, he said, it's just like a fruit tree. Although the fruit tree is growing, it doesn't immediately produce the fruit, so you don't see it right away. Another reason is, he said that Krishna withholds the results so that other people on other paths don't become discouraged. For instance, there's those who are dedicated to the path of karma kanda, jnana kanda, and so forth. And if those who are performing bhakti immediately get these incredible results, then they'll be completely discouraged from these other paths. And so in order to not obliterate all these other options, which are actually demands by the conditioned soul who always thinks misusing his independent, that he has the best way, Krishna is affording him these opportunities because he's giving a ground for people to explore their minute independence, and therefore to not cover all these other paths. He doesn't immediately show the results of the chanting and the immediate results of bhakti in the bhaktas who perform that. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that even though someone might not show any results, at the end Krishna just takes him right back to God. I thought you'd like that, Gandharvika, because you're always asking that question, like, where is it, And in gardening, I see this happens all the time, There's these little sleepers out there that I can plant them, and then years go by, and I sort of forget about them, because, you're not doing anything. And then I'll go on vacation or something and come back, and then they're just, bigger than everybody else. And so you can't count out anything or anybody who's connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his holy names. And let's look in the Madhya Lila. Please find the section of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going to the Jagannath temple for the first time and then meeting Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and we'll read that section. I have a dim recollection, but maybe the shlokas you're looking for are in one of those purports. Could be.
Actually, one of the proof in 352.
What's that?
352, one of the proof.
One of the purports?
Yeah.
Madhya?
Adilila.
Adilila 352. Okay.
First paragraph.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's regarding golden form.
Okay. Okay, Adi 352. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sangopangashtra Parshadam Jagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumeda Saha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangashtra Parshadam Jagnai Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Sumeda Saha Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Jagnai Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Sumeda Saha Yajanti Sumeda Saha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Purport: this text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.532. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this verse in his commentary on the Bhagavatam, known as the Krama Sandarbha. Which Sandarbha? Wherein he says that Lord Krishna also appears with a golden complexion. That golden Lord Krishna is Lord Chaitanya, who is worshipped by intelligent men in this age. That is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by Gargamuni. By who? Gargamuni. Who said that although the child Krishna was blackish, he also appears in 3 other colors, red, white, and yellow. He exhibited his white and red complexions in the Satya and Treta ages respectively. He did not exhibit the remaining color, yellow, gold, until he appeared as Lord Chaitanya, who is known as Gaura Hari. Say Gaura Hari. Gaura Hari! Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Krishna Varna means Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Varna and Krishna Chaitanya are equivalent. The name Krishna appears with both Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he always engages in describing Krishna and thus enjoys transcendental bliss by chanting and remembering the name and his name and form. Lord Krishna himself appears as Lord Chaitanya to preach the highest gospel. Lord Chaitanya always chants the holy name of Krishna and describes it also. And because he is Krishna himself, whoever meets him will automatically chant the holy name of Krishna and later describe it to others. He injects one with transcendental Krishna consciousness, which merges the chanter in transcendental bliss. In all respects, therefore, he appears before everyone as Krishna, either by personality or by sound. Simply by seeing Lord Chaitanya, one at once remembers Lord Krishna. One may therefore accept him as Vishnu Tattva. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna himself. Sangopangashtra Parshadam further indicates that Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna. His body is always decorated with ornaments of sandalwood and with sandalwood paste. By his super excellent beauty, he subdues all the people of the age. In other descents, the Lord sometimes used weapons to defeat the demoniac. But in this age, the Lord subdues them with his all-attractive figure as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Jiva Goswami explains that his beauty is his astra, or weapon, to subdue the demons. Because he is all-attractive, it is to be understood that all the demigods lived with him as his companions. His acts were uncommon and his associates wonderful. When he propagated the Sankirtan movement, he attracted many great scholars and acharyas, especially in Bengal and Orissa. Lord Chaitanya is always accompanied by his best associates like Lord Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. Srila Jiva Goswami cites a verse from the Vedic literature which says that there is no necessity of performing sacrificial demonstrations or ceremonial functions. He comments that instead of engaging in such external pompous exhibitions, all people, regardless of caste, color, or creed, can assemble together and chant Hare Krishna to worship Lord Chaitanya. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam indicates that prominence should be given to the name of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught Krishna consciousness and chanted the name of Krishna. Therefore, to worship Lord Chaitanya, everyone should together chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To propagate worship in churches, temples, or mosques is not possible because people have lost interest in that. But anywhere and everywhere, people can chant Hare Krishna. Thus, worshipping Lord Chaitanya, they can perform the highest activity and fulfill the highest religious purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, a famous disciple of Lord Chaitanya, said the principle of transcendental devotional service having been lost, Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared in order to deliver again the process of devotion. He is so kind that he is distributing love of Krishna. Everyone should be attracted more and more to his lotus feet, as hummingbees are attracted to a lotus flower. And did you find the other section? Yeah. Madhya 6. That's good. We have electronic devices. The liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Okay. Did everyone get a chance to do their Gayatri? Besides me? We take a 5 minutes moment of silence. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Tamsastaya Brahmanishtam Yasitam Bhurvatamar Maharshibhi Aham Trishami Durantaparam. Bhakata charanari bhajana nukula Shudha Bhakata charanarenu bhajana nukula What key would you like? What key do you want? D. Shuddha Bhakata charanarenu bhajananu kula Bhakata seva parama siddhi premalati karamula Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Madhavatiti Bhakti Janani Jatani Palana Kori Krishna Basati Basati Bole Paramadare Bore Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Gaurama Jeshavastani Korolo Brahmana Range Sheshavastana Heribo Ami Prayani Bhaktas Sange Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mridanga Bhaja Shunati Mana Vasarasara Yache Gaur Vihita Kirtana Shuri Anande Hridaya Nache Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jula Murti Daki Amora Paramananda Hoya Prasada Seva Korite Hoya Sakala Prapancha Jaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kanya grihe bhajana dekhi grihe te goloka bhaya. Charana Sidhu Dekiya Ganga Sukana Sima Paya. Every day Goloka Vrindavan appears in my house. When I see Lord Hari being worshipped there, my joy knows no bounds when I see the Ganges, a river of nectar emanating from the Lord's lotus feet. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tulasi deke juraya prana Madhava toshani jani. Gaura priya shaksevani jivana sartakamani. The sight of the tulsi plant soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. I feel that my life has been fulfilled when I honor shak, a green leafy vegetable preparation that is a favorite of Lord Chaitanya's. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhakati Vinod Krishna Bhajane Anakula Paya Jaha. Prapte Divase Parama Sukhe Swikara Koro Ye Taha. Whatever Bhaktivinoda obtains that furthers devotional service to Sri Krishna, he accepts every day with the greatest joy. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Go Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Gaur Premanande. Now you're really going to get it. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Tahan Vistarita Hoya Pale Prema Pal. Tahan Vistarita Hoya Pale Prema Pal. Ihan Mali Sheche Nitya Shravanadi Jal. 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 Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Nagare Nitai Neche Neche Gaire. Nadiya Nagare Nitai Neche Neche Gaire. Naumitam Gaurachandram Ya Kutarka Karkashashrayam Sarvabhumam Sarvabhuma Bhakti Bhumanam Acharat. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Gaurachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who converted the hard-hearted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the reservoir of all bad logic, into a great devotee. How is everybody? Haribol! Good? Yes. Yeah. We're making up for lost time. Yeah. Better. Kirtan's nice. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. In ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went from Artalanala to the temple of Jagannath. After seeing Lord Jagannath, he became very restless due to love of Godhead. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went swiftly to embrace Lord Jagannath, but when he entered the temple, he was so overwhelmed with love of Godhead that he fainted to the floor. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to see him. When the watchman threatened to beat the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya immediately forbade him. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very surprised to see the personal beauty of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as well as the transcendental transformations wrought on his body due to love of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained unconscious for a long time. Meanwhile, the time for offering prasadam to Lord Jagannath came, and the Bhattacharya tried to think of a remedy. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was unconscious, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with the help of the watchman and some disciples, carried him to his home and laid him down in a very sanctified room. Examining the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma saw that his abdomen was not moving and that he was not breathing. Seeing his condition, the Bhattacharya became very anxious. The Bhattacharya then took a fine cotton swab and put it before the Lord's nostrils. When he saw the cotton move very slightly, he became hopeful. Sitting beside Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he thought, this is a transcendental ecstatic transformation brought about by love of Krishna. Upon seeing the sign of Sudipta Sattvika, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could immediately understand the transcendental ecstatic transformation in the body of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Such a sign takes place only in the bodies of eternally liberated devotees. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya considered, the uncommon ecstatic symptoms of Adiruddha Bhava are appearing in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is very wonderful. How are they possible in the body of a human being? While the Bhattacharya was thinking in this way at his home, all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Nityananda Prabhu, approached the Singhadwar. There the devotees heard the people talking about a mendicant who had come to Jagannath Puri and seen the deity of Jagannath. The people said that the sannyasi had fallen unconscious upon seeing the deity of Lord Jagannath. Because his consciousness did not return, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had taken him to his home. Hearing this, the devotees could understand that they were speaking of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just then, Sri Gopinathacharya arrived. Gopinathacharya was a resident of Nadia, the son-in-law of Visharada, and a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew the true identity of his lordship. Gopinathacharya had previously been acquainted with Mukunda Datta, and when the Acharya saw him at Jagannath Puri, he was very much astonished. Mukunda Datta offered obeisances unto Gopinathacharya upon meeting him. Then the Acharya embraced Mukunda Datta and inquired about news of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. About who? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Correct. Mukunda Datta replied, the Lord has already arrived here. We have come with him. As soon as Gopinathacharya saw Nityananda Prabhu, he offered his obeisances unto him. In this way, meeting all the devotees, he asked about news of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again. Mukunda Datta continued, after accepting the sannyasa order, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to Jagannath Puri and has brought all of us with him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left our company and walked ahead to see Lord Jagannath. We have just arrived and are now looking for him. From the talk of the people in general, we have guessed that the Lord is now at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Upon seeing Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became ecstatic and fell unconscious, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has taken him to his home in this condition. Just as I was thinking of meeting you, by chance we have actually met. First, let us all go to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later we shall come to see Lord Jagannath. Hearing this and feeling very pleased, Gopinathacharya immediately took all the devotees with him and approached the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Arriving at the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, everyone saw that the Lord lying unconscious. Gopinathacharya became very unhappy to see him in this condition, and at the same time he was happy just to see the Lord. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya permitted all the devotees to enter his house, and upon seeing Nityananda Prabhu, the Bhattacharya offered him obeisances. Sarvabhauma met with all the devotees and offered them a proper welcome. They were all pleased to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Bhattacharya then sent them all back to see Lord Jagannath, and he asked his own son, Chandaneshwar, to accompany them as a guide. Chandaneshwar. Everyone was then very pleased to see the deity of Lord Jagannath. Lord Nityananda in particular was overwhelmed with ecstasy. When Lord Nityananda Prabhu nearly fainted, all the devotees caught him and steadied him. At the same time, the priest of Jagannath brought a garland that had been offered to the deity and offered it to Nityananda Prabhu. Everyone was pleased to receive this garland worn by Lord Jagannath. Afterwards, they all returned to the place where Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying. All of the devotees then began to loudly chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Just before noon, the Lord regained his consciousness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and very loudly chanted, Hare Hare! Let's hear it. No, it wasn't like that. It was a little louder. Let's hear it. That's it. That was it, like that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very pleased to see the Lord regain consciousness, and he took the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. The Bhattacharya informed all of them, please take your midday baths immediately. Today I shall offer you Mahaprasad, the remnants of food offered to Lord Jagannath. After bathing in the sea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees returned very soon. The Lord then washed his feet and sat down on a carpet to take lunch. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya made arrangements to bring various kinds of Mahaprasadam from the Jagannath temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then accepted lunch with great happiness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offered special rice and first-class vegetables on golden plates. He thus took lunch in the company of his devotees. While Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya personally distributed the prasadam, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested him, please give me only boiled vegetables. You can offer the cakes and preparations made with condensed milk to all the devotees. Hearing this, the Bhattacharya folded his hands and spoke as follows. Today, all of you, please try to taste the lunch, just as Lord Jagannath accepted it. After saying this, he made them all eat the various cakes and condensed milk preparations. After feeding them, he offered them water to wash their hands, feet, and mouths. Begging permission from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then went with Gopinath Acharya to take lunch. After finishing their lunch, they returned to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Offering his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Namo Narayanayam. I offer my obeisances to Narayan. In return, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Krishna Matirastu. Let your attention be on Krishna. Hearing these words, Sarvabhauma understood Lord Chaitanya to be a Vaishnava sannyasi. Sarvabhauma then said to Gopinath Acharya, I want to know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's previous situation. Gopinath Acharya replied, there was a man named Jagannath who was a resident of Navadvip and whose surname was Mishra Purandara. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the son of that Jagannath Mishra, and his former name was Vishrambar Mishra. He also happens to be the grandson of Nilambar Chakravarti. The Bhattacharya said, Nilambar Chakravarti was a classmate of my father, Maheshwar Visharda. I knew him as such. Jagannath Mishra Purandara was respected by my father. Thus, because of their relationship with my father, I respect both Jagannath Mishra and Nilambar Chakravarti. Hearing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to the Nadia district, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became very pleased and addressed the Lord as follows. You are naturally respectable. Besides, you are a sannyasi. Thus I wish to become your personal servant. As soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this from the Bhattacharya, he immediately remembered Lord Vishnu and began to speak humbly to him as follows. Because you are a teacher of Vedanta philosophy, you are the master of all the people in the world and their well-wishers as well. You are also the benefactor of all kinds of sannyasis. I am a young sannyasi, and I actually have no knowledge of what is good and what is bad. Therefore, I am taking shelter of you and accepting you as my spiritual master. I have come here only to associate with you, and I am now taking shelter of you. Will you kindly maintain me in all respects? The incident that happened today was a great obstacle for me, but you have kindly relieved me of it. The Bhattacharya replied, do not go alone to see the deity at the Jagannath temple. It is better that you go with me or my men. The Lord said, I shall never enter the temple, but shall always view the Lord from the side of the Garuda Stamba. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then told Gopinath Acharya, take Goswamiji and show him Lord Jagannath. Also, the apartment belonging to my maternal aunt is in a very solitary place. Make all arrangements for him to stay there. Thus, Gopinathacharya took Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his residential quarters and showed him where to find water, tubs, and water pots. Indeed, he arranged everything. The next day, Gopinathacharya took Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the early rising of Lord Jagannath. Gopinathacharya then took Mukunda Datta with him and went to Sarvabhauma's house. When they arrived, Sarvabhauma addressed Mukunda Datta as follows. The sannyasi is very meek and humble by nature, and his person is very beautiful to see. Consequently, my affection for him increases. From which sampradaya has he accepted the sannyas order, and what is his name? Gopinathacharya replied, the Lord's name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and his sannyas preceptor is a greatly fortunate Keshava Bharati. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Sri Krishna is a very good name, but he belongs to the Bharati community. Therefore, he is a second-class sannyasi. Gopinathacharya replied, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not rely on any external formality. There is no need for him to accept the sannyas order from a superior sampradaya. The Bhattacharya inquired, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is his full-fledged youthful name. How can he keep the principles of sannyas? I shall continually recite Vedanta philosophy before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so that he may remain fixed in his renunciation and thus enter upon the path of monism. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then suggested, if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would like, I could bring him into a first-class sampradaya by offering him saffron cloth and performing the reformatory process again. Gopinathacharya and Mukunda Datta became very unhappy when they heard this. Gopinathacharya therefore addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as follows. My dear Bhattacharya, you do not know the greatness of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are found in him to the highest degree. Gopinathacharya continued, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant of this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men very difficult to understand. I'll read that again. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant in this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men very difficult to understand. The disciples of Sarvabhaumacharya retaliated. By what evidence do you conclude that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord? Gopinathacharya replied, the statements of authorized acharyas who understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are proof. The disciples of the Bhattacharya said, we derive knowledge of the absolute truth by logical hypothesis. Gopinathacharya replied, one cannot attain real knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such logical hypotheses and argument. Hypothesis. Gopinathacharya continued, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by his mercy, not by guesswork or hypothesis. Anuman praman nahe, Ishvar tattva jnane, kripa vina ishvarere keha nahi jane. Ishvarera kripalesh, hoya ta yahare, sheta ishvara tato, jani bari pari. Jani bari pari. The Acharya continued, if one receives but a tiny bit of the Lord's favor, by dint of devotional service, he can understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of God. Where's Ujjvala Varna? I thought we were going to have that. Can we have it? Ujjvala Varna Gaura Vara Deham Nivasita Niravari Bhava Videham Ujjvala Varna Gaura Vara Deham Nivasita Niravari Bhava Videham Ujjvala Varna Gaura Vara Deham Vilasita Niravari Bhava Videham. So this next part of the first stanza matches up to the last verse we just read. Tribhuvana pavana krupaya lesham tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam Krupaya lesham Krupaya lesham, just a trace of the mercy can deliver the three worlds, one little trace. Atapite deva padam buja dvaya prasada leshana grihita eva hi janati tadvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharam vachimban. This verse, spoken by Lord Brahma in his prayers to, says that no one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by reasoning, but if he gets just a trace of his mercy, one little trace, a lesha, then he can understand everything perfectly. Ujvala varana gaura varadeham vilasita niravari bhava videham. Tribhuvana pavana krupaya lesham tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Gadgarantara bhava vikaram Durjana tarjana nada vishalam. Bhavabhaya bhajana karana karunam tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Aranam Bharadara Charu Kapolam Induvinindita Nakachaya Ruchira. Jalpita Nijaguna Nama Vinodham Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Vigalita nayana kamala jaladharam bhushana navarasa bhava vikaram. Gatiyati mantana nritya vilasham tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Chanchala charu charana gati ruchiram manjiraran Chitta para yuga madura. Chandra vinindita shitala varanam tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Tritakati Dora Kamandalu Dandam Divyakale Varamundita Mundam Durjana kalmasha kandana dandam tang pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Bhushana Purajala Kavalitam Kampita Bimdara Bhara Ruchira Malaya Javira Chitta Ujvala Tilakam Tam Pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Nindita Aruna Kavala Dalanayanam Ajanulam Bitta Shri Bhuja Yugalam Kalevarakai Shora Nartaka Vesham Tam Pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Ujvala Varnana Gaura Varadeha Vilasita Niravari Bhava Videha Jevuvana Pavana Kripaya Lesham Tam Pranamami cha Shri Sachitanaya. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Harinam Mahamantra ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu ki, Shri Sachinandan Gaura Hari ki, Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. We're looking for that Kripaya Lesham. Ishvarera Kripalesha Hoeta Jahare Sheta Isharo Tato Jani Bari Pare The Acharya continued, if one receives but a tiny bit of the Lord's favor, by dint of devotional service, he can understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just by washing pots, right? Oh, atapite deva padambuja tvaya prasada leshanugrahita eva hi janati fam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharam bachinvan. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate in order to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Text 85-86. Gopinath Acharya then addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you are a great scholar and a teacher of many disciples. Indeed, there is no other scholar like you on earth. Nonetheless, because you are bereft of even a pinch of the Lord's mercy, you cannot understand him, even though he is present in your home. Tomar nahika dosh, shastre e kahe, pandit radye isharo tato, jnana kabu nahe. It is not your fault. It is the verdict of the scriptures. You cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by scholarship. Yes, it relates to Digvijay. Very much so. 88. Sarvabhauma kahe, acharya kaha, swa. Sarvabhauma kahe, acharya kaha, savadhane tomata ishvaro kripa ite ki pramane. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, my dear Gopinath Acharya, please speak with great care. What is the proof that you have received the mercy of the Lord? Acharya kahe, vashtu vishaye, hoy vashtu gyan, vashtu tato, gyan hoy, kripate praman. Gopinath Acharya replied, knowledge of the summum bonum, the absolute truth, is evidence of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Inhara sharira shab isharo lakano maha prema veshtumi panacha darshano. Gopinath Acharya continued, you have seen the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his absorption in an ecstatic mood. Tabuta isharo gyan na hoy tomar ishvare ramaya e bali vyavahara. Despite directly perceiving the symptoms of the Supreme Lord in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot understand him. This is commonly called illusion. Text 92. A person influenced by the external energy is called Bahirmukh Jan, a mundane person, because despite his perception, he cannot understand the real substance. Hearing Gopinath Acharya say this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya smiled and began to speak as follows. The Bhattacharya said, we are just having a discussion among friends and considering the points described in the scriptures. Do not become angry. I am simply speaking on the strength of the Shastras. Please don't take any offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly a great uncommon devotee, but we cannot accept him as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, because according to Shastra, there is no incarnation in this age of Kali. Another name for Lord Vishnu is Tri-yuga, because there is no incarnation of Lord Krishna in Kali Yuga. Indeed, this is the verdict of the revealed scriptures. Upon hearing this, Gopinath Acharya became very unhappy. He said to the Bhattacharya, you consider yourself the knower of all Vedic scriptures. Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata are the two most important Vedic scriptures, but you have paid no attention to their statements. In Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata, it is stated that the Lord appears directly, but you say that in this age there is no manifestation or incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Kali Juge Lila Avatar Nakari Bhagavan Ataiva Triyuga Kahi Taranam. In this age of Kali Yuga, there is no Leela avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is known as Triyuga. That is one of his holy names, Triyuga. Gopinath Acharya continued, there is certainly an incarnation in every age, and such an incarnation is called the Yuga avatar. But your heart has become so hardened by logic and argument that you cannot consider these facts. Asan varnastrayo yasya grinato nu yugam tanu shuklo raktastata pita idanim krishnatam gataha. In the past, your son has had bodies of 3 different colors according to the age. These colors were white, red, and yellow. In this age, Dwapara Yuga, he has accepted a blackish body. Iti Dwapara Urvisha Stuvanti Jagadishvaram Nanatantra Vidanena Kalavapi Tatashrinu. In the age of Kali, as well as in Dwapara Yuga, the people offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by various mantras and observe the regulative principles of the supplementary Vedic literatures. Now please hear of this from me. In this age of Kali, those who are intelligent perform the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in this age always describing the glories of Krishna. That incarnation is yellowish in hue and is always associated with his plenary expansions such as Sri Nityananda Prabhu and personal expansions such as Gadadhar, as well as his devotees and associates such as Swarup Damodar. That's from Srimad Bhagavatam. Pardon me?
The same verse is repeated.
Repeated, yeah. There's one of your big verses from Bhagavatam. And then from the Vishnu Sahasranam Stotram. Suvarna Varnahe Mango Varnangas Chanjanangadi Sanyasya Krishnaman Shanto Nishtashanti Purayanaha. The Lord in the incarnation of Gaurasundar has a golden complexion. Indeed, his entire body, which is very nicely constituted, is like molten gold. Sandalwood pulp is smeared all over his body. He will take the 4th order of spiritual life, sannyas, and will be very much self-controlled. He will be distinguished from Mayavadi sannyasis, and then he will be fixed in devotional service and will spread the Sankirtan movement. Gopinath Acharya quoted this verse from the Mahabharata as Vishnu Sahasranam Stotram. Yes? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, Krishna is described as Tri Yoga. However, does not include Lord Buddha, who is also an incarnation of Vishnu. So he came in Kali Yuga. So why is that not being included in the counting?
You have an answer for that, Srivas? Yeah. Yeah. He just said that there's certainly an incarnation in every age, and such an incarnation is called Yuga Avatar, but your heart has become so hard-hearted by logic and argument that you cannot consider all these facts. Hmm? 6.99. Gopinath Acharya then said, there is no need to quote so much evidence from the Shastras, for you are a very dry speculator. There is no need to sow seeds in barren land. When the Lord will be pleased with you, you will also understand these conclusions and will quote from the Shastras. The false arguments and philosophical word jugglery of your disciples are not faults of theirs. They have simply received the benediction of Mayavad philosophy. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of unlimited qualities and whose different potencies bring about agreement and disagreement between disputants. Thus, the illusory energy again and again covers the self-realization of both disputants. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 6.4.31. 109. In almost all cases, whatever learned Brahmins speak become accepted. Nothing is impossible for one who takes shelter of my illusory energy and speaks under her influence. Purport. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.22.4, the Supreme Personality of Godhead explains that his illusory energy can perform the impossible. Such is the power of the illusory energy. In many cases, philosophical speculators have covered the real truth and have boldly set forth false theories. In ancient times, philosophers like Kapila, Gautama, Jaimini, Kanada, and similar Brahmanas propounded useless philosophical theories, and in modern days, so-called scientists are setting forth many false theories about the creation, backed up by seemingly logical arguments. This is all due to the influence of the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. The illusory energy, therefore, sometimes appears correct because it is emanating from the Supreme Correct. To avoid the very bewildering illusory influence, one must accept the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as they are. Only then can one escape the influence of the illusory energy. Tabe Bhattacharya kahe jaha gosai nirastani amaraname gana sahita kari nimantrane. After hearing this from Gopinath Acharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, first go to the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying and invite him here with his associates. Ask him on my account. Take Jagannath Prasad and first give it to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. After that, come back here and teach me well. Gopinath Acharya was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Therefore, their relationship was very sweet and intimate. Under the circumstances, Gopinath Acharya taught him, sometimes by blaspheming him, sometimes praising him, and sometimes laughing at him. This had been going on for some time. Srila Mukunda Datta felt very satisfied to hear the conclusive statements of Gopinath Acharya, but he became very unhappy and angry to hear the statements put forth by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. According to the instructions of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Gopinath Acharya went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and invited him on the Bhattacharya's behalf. The Bhattacharya's statements were discussed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gopinath Acharya and Mukunda Datta disapproved of the Bhattacharya's statements because they caused mental pain. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, do not speak like that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown great affection and mercy toward me. Out of parental affection for me, he wants to protect me and see that I follow the regulative principles of a sannyasi. What fault is there in this? The next morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya together visited the temple of Lord Jagannath. Both of them were in a very pleasant mood. When they entered the temple, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a seat, while he himself sat down on the floor out of due respect for a sannyasi. He then began to instruct Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Vedanta philosophy, and out of affection and devotion, he spoke to the Lord as follows. The Bhattacharya said, hearing Vedanta philosophy is a sannyasi's main business. Therefore, without hesitation, you should study Vedanta philosophy, hearing it without cessation from a superior person. Lord Chaitanya replied, you are very merciful to me, and therefore I think it my duty to obey your order. Thus, for 7 days continuously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to the Vedanta philosophy expounded by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. However, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not say anything and did not indicate whether it was right or wrong. He simply sat there and listened to the Bhattacharya. On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have been listening to Vedanta philosophy from me continually for 7 days. You have simply been listening, fixed in your silence. Since you do not say whether you think it is right or wrong, I cannot know whether you are actually understanding Vedanta philosophy or not. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am a fool, and consequently I do not study the Vedanta Sutra. I am just trying to hear it from you because you have ordered me. Only for the sake of executing the duties of the renounced order of sannyas do I listen. Unfortunately, I cannot in the least understand the meaning you are presenting. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I accept that you do not understand. Yet even one who does not understand inquires about the subject matter. You are hearing again and again, yet you keep silent. I cannot understand what is actually within your mind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then revealed his mind, saying, I can understand the meaning of each sutra very clearly, but your explanations have simply agitated my mind. The meaning of the aphorisms in the Vedanta Sutra contain clear purports in themselves, but other purports you presented simply covered the meaning of the sutras like a cloud. You do not explain the direct meaning of the Brahma Sutras. Indeed, it appears that your business is to cover their real meaning. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the Upanishads. Therefore, whatever direct meaning is there in the Upanishads is also recorded in the Vedanta Sutra, or Vyasa Sutra. For each sutra, the direct meaning must be accepted without interpretation. However, you simply abandon the direct meaning and proceed with your imaginative interpretation. Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version must be taken as foremost. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu purport. Works that should be consulted are Srila Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha, 10 through 11, Srila Baladev Vidyabhusan's commentary on that, and the following verses of the Brahma Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat, Tarka Pratishtanat, Shrutes tu Shabdat Mulatvat, as commented upon by Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya, Sri Nimbarkacharya, and Srila Baladev Vidyabhusan. In his book Sarva Samvadini, Srila Jiva Goswami has noted that although there are 10 kinds of evidence, direct perception, the Vedic version, historical reference, hypothesis, and so on, and although they are all generally accepted as evidence, the person presenting a hypothesis, reading the Vedic version, perceiving or interpreting by his experience is certain to be imperfect in 4 ways. That is, he is subject to committing mistakes, to becoming illusioned, to cheating, and to having imperfect senses. Although the evidence may be correct, the person himself is in danger of being misled due to his material defects. Apart from the direct presentation, there is a chance that an interpretation may not be perfect. Therefore, the conclusion is that only a direct presentation can be considered evidence. An interpretation cannot be accepted as evidence, but may be considered proof of evidence. In the Bhagavad Gita, at the very beginning, it is stated, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharmakshetri Kurukshetri Samaveta Yuyutsavaha, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Statements of the Bhagavad Gita are themselves proof that there is a place of religious pilgrimage named Kurukshetra where the Pandavas and Kurus met to fight. After meeting there, what did they do? This was Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya. Although these statements are very clear, atheists try to interpret different meanings of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has warned us not to depend on any kind of interpretation. It is better to take the verses as they are, without interpretation. 136. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, conch shells and cow dung are nothing but the bones and stool of some living entities, but according to the Vedic version, they are both considered very pure. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Brahma Sutra, compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, is as radiant as the sun. One who tries to interpret its meaning simply covers that sunshine with a cloud. All the Vedas and literature that strictly follow the Vedic principles explain that the Supreme Brahman is the Absolute Truth, the greatest of all, and a feature of the Supreme Lord. Actually, the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. the Supreme Personality of Godhead full with all opulences. You are trying to explain him as impersonal and formless. Wherever there is an impersonal description in the Vedas mean to establish that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and free of mundane characteristics. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, whatever Vedic mantras describe the Absolute Truth impersonally only prove in the end that the Absolute Truth is a person. The Supreme Lord is understood in two features, impersonal and... If one considers the Supreme Personality of Godhead in both features, he can actually understand the Absolute Truth. He knows that the personal understanding is stronger because we see that everything is full of variety, but no one can see anything that is not full of variety. (143) Everything in the cosmic manifestation emanates from the Absolute Truth, remains in the Absolute Truth, and after annihilation again enters the Absolute Truth. The personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are categorized as three, namely ablative, instrumental, and locative. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead wished to become many, he glanced over the material energy. Before the creation, there were no mundane eyes or mind. Therefore, the transcendental nature of the Absolute Truth's mind and eyes is confirmed. The word Brahman indicates the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Sri Krishna. That is the verdict of all Vedic literature. The confidential meaning of the Vedas is not easily understood by common men. Therefore, that meaning is supplemented by the words of the Puranas. Aho bhagyam nanda gopa vrajaukasam yanmitram paramanandam purnam brahma sanatanam. How greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men, and all the inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There is no limit to their fortune, because the Absolute Truth, the source of transcendental bliss, the eternal Supreme Brahman, has become their friend. Where's that quotation from? Aho bhagyam nanda gopa vrajaukasam. Yanmitram paramanandam. It's Lord Brahma's prayers. The Vedic Apanipad mantra rejects material hands and legs, yet it states that the Lord goes very fast and accepts everything offered to him. All these mantras confirm that the Absolute Truth is personal, but the Mayavadis, throwing away the direct meaning, interpret the Absolute Truth as impersonal. You are describing as formless that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose transcendental form is complete with 6 transcendental opulences. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 primary potencies. Are you trying to prove that he has no potencies? Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetragyakya Tata Para Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritiya Shakti Rishyate. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord Vishnu is spiritual, as verified by the Shastras. There is another spiritual potency known as Kshetragya, or the living entity. The third potency, which is known as Nescience, makes the living entity godless and fills him with fruitive activities. O King, the Kshetragya Shakti is the living entity. Although he has the facility to live either in the material or the spiritual world, he suffers the threefold miseries of material existence because he is influenced by the abidya, nescience potency, which covers his constitutional position. This living entity covered by the influence of nescience exists in different forms in the material condition. O King, he is thus proportionately freed from the influence of material energy to a greater or lesser degree. The Supreme Personality of God is Sakchidananda Vigraha. This means that he originally has 3 potencies: the pleasure potency, the potency of eternality, and then the potency of knowledge. Together these are called the Chit potency, and they are present in full in the Supreme Lord. For the living entities who are part and parcel of the Lord, the pleasure potency in the material world is sometimes displeasing and sometimes mixed. This is not the case with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is not under the influence of the material energy and its modes. Very important distinction. Otherwise, how could you submit? If you have even the subtlest idea that I'm the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can you give full submission? And without full submission, there's no bhakti. Or there's very little bhakti, or chance for it to develop. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in His original form is full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The spiritual potency in these three portions, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, assumes three different forms. The three portions of the spiritual potency are called Hladini, the bliss portion, Sandini, the eternity potency, and Sanvit, the knowledge portion. We accept knowledge of these as full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: to acquire knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must take shelter of the Samvit potency of the Supreme Lord. 160. Antaranga chit shakti tatashta jiva shakti bahuranga maya tine kari prema bhakti. The spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead also appears in three phases: internal, marginal, and external. These are all engaged in his devotional service in love. In his spiritual potency, the Supreme Lord enjoys 6 kinds of opulences. You do not accept this spiritual potency, and this is due to your great impudence. The Lord is the master of all potencies, and the living entity is the servant of them. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is established as the marginal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet you say that the living entity is completely different from the Lord. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego are my eightfold separated energies. Besides these inferior energies, which are material, there is another energy, a spiritual energy, and this is the living being, O mighty armed one. The entire material world is sustained by the living entities. The transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete in eternity, cognizance, and bliss. However, you describe this transcendental form as a product of material goodness. One who does not accept the transcendental form of the Lord is certainly an agnostic. Such a person should be neither seen nor touched. Indeed, he is subject to be punished by Yamaraj. The Buddhists do not recognize the authority of the Vedas, therefore they are considered agnostics. However, those who have taken shelter of the Vedic scriptures yet preach agnosticism in accordance with the Mayavad philosophy are certainly more dangerous than the Buddhists. Srila Vyasadeva presented the Vedanta philosophy for the deliverance of conditioned souls. But if one hears the commentary of Shankaracharya, everything is spoiled. The Vedanta Sutra aims at establishing that the cosmic manifestation has come into being by the transformation of the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The touchstone, after touching iron, produces volumes of gold without being changed. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as the cosmic manifestation by his inconceivable potency, yet he remains unchanged in his eternal transcendental form. Shankaracharya's theory states that the absolute truth is transformed. By accepting this theory, the Mayavadi philosophers denigrate Srila Vyasadeva by accusing him of error. They thus find fault in the Vedanta Sutra and interpret it to try to establish the theory of illusion. The theory of illusion can be applied only when the living entity identifies himself with the body. As far as the cosmic manifestation is concerned, it cannot be called false, although it is certainly temporary. The transcendental vibration Omkar is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All Vedic knowledge and this cosmic manifestation are produced from this sound representation of the Supreme Lord. This subsidiary vibration Tattvamasi, you are the same, is meant for the understanding of the living entity. But the principal vibration is Omkar. Not caring for Omkar, Shankaracharya has stressed the vibration Tattvamasi. Thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Shankaracharya's Sharirak Bhasha as imaginary, and he pointed out hundreds of faults in it. To defend Shankaracharya, however, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya presented unlimited opposition. The Bhattacharya presented various types of false argument with pseudo-logic and tried to defeat his opponent in many ways. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the central point of all relationships. Acting in devotional service to Him is one's real occupation, and the attainment of love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. These three subject matters are described in the Vedic literature. If one tries to explain the Vedic literature in a different way, he is indulging in imagination. Any interpretation of the self-evident Vedic version is simply imaginary. Actually, there's no fault on the part of Shankaracharya. He simply carried out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had to imagine some kind of interpretation, and therefore he presented a kind of Vedic literature that is full of atheism. Addressing Lord Shiva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Please make the general populace averse to me by imagining your own interpretation of the Vedas. Also cover me in such a way that people will take more interest in advancing material civilization just to propagate a population bereft of spiritual knowledge. This is a quotation from the Padma Purana, Uttarakanda. Yes?
Why would the Lord do that?
He has to give facility for the living entities to enjoy their independence. And because they're inclined towards the mode of ignorance, he has to propagate that. It's an alternative. Huh?
It's almost like a king ordering. It's almost like a king ordering his subordinates to create a prison house.
Yeah, almost.
Almost.
Srivas, you want to comment on this philosophical point?
Well, in the age of Kali Yuga, people were degraded, and Lord Vishnu, he said, to bewilder or even to give an outlet to their atheistic philosophy, because we had already seen that they could use Vedas for indiscriminate animal killing, and Buddha had to come and to stop it. So the mass of population wanted to subvert the religion in the form of, by using the Vedas as a means, and to give facility to those kind of mischievous and atheistic people. The Lord said, okay, you give them some sort of imagination, but in the end they'll be deluded. So Krishna, being merciful in many ways, he just ordered Lord Shiva to do that, but not for any cruel intentions on part of the Lord, because that would be against his reputation as a well-wisher of everybody. But because people had that desire, Krishna ordered Lord Shiva to fulfill that particular desire and use Vedas as a pretext.
So similar to what we're saying, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Any other points?
And also it answers Mukharavinda Prabhu's question previously, that who is better, an atheist or a Mayavadi? Pretty much they are one and the same according to the reading which we are doing right now.
Yeah. Lord Shiva informed Goddess Durga, the superintendent of the material world, in the age of Kali, I take the form of a Brahmana and explain the Vedas through false scriptures in an atheistic way, similar to Buddhist philosophy. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became very much astonished upon hearing this. He became stunned and said nothing. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told him, do not be astonished. Actually, devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the highest perfection of human activity. Even the self-satisfied sages perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such are the transcendental qualities of the Lord. They are full of inconceivable spiritual potencies. Atmaramas jamunayo nigranta apyarukrame kurvantya haitu kim bhaktim itam bhuta guno harihi. Those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendently attractive features. This is the famous Atmarama verse 1710. Shuni Bhattacharya kahe, Shuna Mahashaya, E Shlokera Arto Shunite Vancha hoy. After hearing the Atmarama verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "My dear sir, please explain this verse. I have a great desire to hear your explanation of it." The Lord replied, "First let me hear your explanation. After that, I shall try to explain what little I know." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then began to explain the Atmarama verse, and according to the principles of logic, he put forward various propositions. The Bhattacharya explained the Atmarama verse in 9 different ways on the basis of scripture. After hearing his explanation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, smiling a little, began to speak. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear Bhattacharya, you are exactly like Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly kingdom. Indeed, no one within this world has the power to explain the scripture in such a way. My dear Bhattacharya, you have certainly explained this verse by the prowess of your vast learning. But you should know that besides this scholarly explanation, there is another purport to this verse." Upon the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain the verse without touching upon the 9 explanations given by the Bhattacharya. There are 11 words in the Atmarama verse, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained each word one after the other. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took each word specifically and combined it with the word Atmarama. He thus explained the word Atmarama in 18 different ways. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His different potencies, and His transcendental qualities all have inconceivable prowess. Okay, we're almost done. Kicking me out. It is not possible to explain them fully. These 3 items attract the mind of a perfect student engaged in spiritual activities and overcome all other processes of spiritual activities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, His different potencies, and His transcendental qualities all have inconceivable prowess. These 3 items, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His different potencies, and His transcendental qualities, attract the mind of a perfect student engaged in spiritual activities and overcome all other processes of spiritual activity. It's good, right? It's very good. Yeah, I was reading, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was saying that if somebody is having a problem with the mind being lazy or any obstacles to the mind, if he gets association with those who have an actual taste, he said then he'll sit down and his mind will go, "Very good, this is very good." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the meaning of the verse by giving evidence concerning Shukadeva Goswami and the 4 rishis, Sanak, Sanat Kumar, Sanatan, and Sanandan. Thus the Lord gave various meanings and explanations. Upon hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanations of the Atmarama verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was struck with wonder. He then understood Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be Krishna in person, and he thus condemned himself in the following words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was certainly Lord Krishna himself. Because I could not understand him and was very proud of my own learning, I have committed many offenses. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya denounced himself as an offender and took shelter of the Lord desired to show him mercy. To show him mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed him to see his Vishnu form. Thus he immediately assumed 4 hands. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first showed him the 4-handed form and then appeared before him in his original form of Krishna with a blackish complexion and a flute to his lips. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw the form of Lord Krishna manifested in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately fell down flat to offer him obeisances. Then he stood up with folded hands and began to offer prayers. By the mercy of the Lord, all truths were revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he could understand the importance of chanting the holy name and distributing love of Godhead everywhere. By the mercy of the Lord, all truths were revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he could understand the importance of chanting the holy name and distributing love of Godhead everywhere. Can you make a note of that? That's 6:205. I need that verse. 206. Shatta shloka koila ako danda na jaite. Brihaspati taiche shloka napare karite. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya composed 100 verses in a very short time. Indeed, not even Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly planets, can compose verses as quickly. After hearing the 100 verses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happily embraced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was immediately overwhelmed in ecstatic love of Godhead and fell unconscious. Out of ecstatic love of God, the Bhattacharya shed tears and his body was stunned. He exhibited an ecstatic mood and he perspired, shook, and trembled. He sometimes danced, sometimes chanted, sometimes cried, and sometimes fell down to touch the lotus feet of the Lord. While Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was in this ecstasy, Gopinath Acharya was very pleased. The associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all laughed to see the Bhattacharya dance so. Gopinath Acharya told Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "Sir, you have brought all this upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "You are a devotee. Because of your association, Lord Jagannath has shown him mercy." After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pacified the Bhattacharya, and when he was quieted, he offered many prayers to the Lord. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "My dear sir, you have delivered the entire world, but that is not a very great task. However, you have also delivered me, and that is certainly the work of very wonderful powers. I had become dull-headed due to reading too many books on logic. Consequently, I had become like an iron bar. Nonetheless, you have melted me, and therefore your influence is very great. Tarka Shastre Jada Ami, Jaiche Lauha Pinda, Ama Dravhaile Tumi Pratapa Prachanda." Dravile, melted. The Lauha Pinda, the iron bar, is melted. After hearing the prayers offered by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence, and the Bhattacharya, through Gopinath Acharya, induced the Lord to accept lunch there. Early the following morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple, and he saw the Lord rise from his bed. The priest there presented him with garlands and prasad that had been offered to Lord Jagannath. This pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much. Carefully tying the prasadam and garlands in a cloth, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hastened to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He arrived at the Bhattacharya's house a little before sunrise, just when the Bhattacharya was arising from bed. As Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya rose from bed, he distinctly chanted, "Krishna, Krishna." Lord Chaitanya was very pleased to hear him chant the holy name of Krishna. The Bhattacharya noticed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu outside, and with great haste he went to him and offered prayers unto his lotus feet. The Bhattacharya offered a carpet for the Lord to sit upon, and both of them sat there. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened the prasadam and placed it in the hands of the Bhattacharya. At that time the Bhattacharya had not even washed his mouth, nor had he taken his bath or finished his morning duties. Nonetheless, he was very pleased to receive the prasadam of Lord Jagannath. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the dullness in the mind of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was eradicated. After reciting the following 2 verses, he ate the prasadam and offered to him. Shuksham prayushitam vapi nityam va duradeshita prapti matrena bhoktavyam natrakala vicharana. We used to say these before prasadam. We should add them in. The Bhattacharya said, one should eat the Mahaprasad of the Lord immediately upon receiving it, even though it is dried up, stale, or brought from a distant country. One should consider neither time or place. Nadeshe niyamastata nakala niyamastatra praptamanam dhritam shishter bhuktaram harir abravit. The prasad of Lord Krishna is to be eaten by gentlemen as soon as it is received. Therefore there should be no hesitation. There are no regulative principles concerning time and place. This is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is quoted from the Padma Purana. Which Purana? Padma Purana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to see this. He became ecstatic in love of Godhead and embraced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The Lord and the servant embraced each other and began to dance. Simply by touching each other, they became ecstatic. As they danced and embraced, spiritual symptoms manifested in their bodies. They perspired, trembled, and shed tears, and the Lord began to speak in his ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Today I have conquered the three worlds very easily. Today I have ascended to the spiritual world." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "I think that today all my desires have been fulfilled because I see that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has acquired faith in the Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath. Indeed, today you have undoubtedly taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, and Krishna, without reservation, has become very merciful to you. My dear Bhattacharya, today you have been released from material bondage in the bodily conception of life. You have cut to pieces the shackles of the illusory energy. Today your mind has become fit to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Surpassing the Vedic regulative principles, you have eaten the remnants of food offered to the Lord. When a person takes shelter of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead without reservation, the unlimited merciful Lord bestows his causeless mercy upon him. Thus he can pass over the insurmountable ocean of nescience. Those whose intelligence is fixed in the bodily conception, who think that I am this body, are fit food for dogs and jackals. The Supreme Lord never bestows his mercy upon such people." After speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence. From that day on, the Bhattacharya was free because his false pride had been dismantled. From that day on, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya did not know anything but the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And from that day, he could explain the revealed scriptures only in accordance with the process of devotional service. Seeing that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was firmly fixed in the cult of Vaishnavism, Gopinath Acharya, his brother-in-law, began to dance, clap his hands, and chant, "Hari, Hari!" Hari! The next day, the Bhattacharya went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath, but before he reached the temple, he went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya fell down flat to offer him respects. After offering various prayers to him, he spoke of his previous bad disposition with great humility. Then the Bhattacharya asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu which item is most important in the execution of devotional service. The Lord replied that the most important item was the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There's no other way. There's no other way. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very elaborately explained the Harinam verse of the Brihat Naradiya Purana, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was struck with wonder to hear his explanation. Gopinath Acharya reminded Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "My dear Bhattacharya, what I foretold to you has now taken place." Offering his obeisances to Gopinath Acharya, the Bhattacharya said, "Because I am related to you, and you are a devotee, by your mercy the Lord has shown mercy to me. You are a first-class devotee, whereas I am in the darkness of logical arguments. Because of your relationship with the Lord has bestowed his benediction upon me." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with this humble statement. After embracing the Bhattacharya, he said, "Now go see Lord Jagannath in the temple." After visiting the temple of Lord Jagannath, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya returned home with Jagannananda and Damodara. The Bhattacharya brought large quantities of excellent food remnants blessed by Lord Jagannath. All this prasad was given to his own Brahmin servant along with Jagannananda and Damodar. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then composed 2 verses on the leaf of a palm tree. See, the 100 verses were before. Sometimes it gets mixed up. Giving the palm leaf to Jagannananda Prabhu, the Bhattacharya requested him to deliver it to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jagannananda and Damodar then returned to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bringing him both prasad and the palm leaf on which the verses were composed, but Mukunda Dato took the palm leaf from the hands of Jagannananda before he could deliver it to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mukunda Datta then copied the 2 verses on the wall outside the room. Jagannananda took the palm leaf from Mukunda Datta and delivered it to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As soon as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read the 2 verses, he immediately tore up the palm leaf. However, all the devotees read these verses on the outside wall, and they kept them within their hearts. The verses are as follows. "Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender to his lotus feet." Let my consciousness, which is like a honeybee, take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has just now appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the ancient system of devotional service to himself. This system had almost been lost due to the influence of time. These two verses composed by will always declare his name and fame as loudly as a pounding drum, for they have become pearl necklaces around the necks of all devotees. Indeed, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became an unalloyed devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who did not know anything but the service of the Lord. The Bhattacharya chanted the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, son of Mother Sachi, and reservoir of all good qualities. Indeed, chanting the holy name became his meditation. One day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and after offering obeisances, recited a verse. He began to quote one of Lord Brahma's prayers from Srimad Bhagavatam, but he changed 2 syllables at the end of the verse. The Bhattacharya recited, "One who seeks your compassion and thus tolerates all kinds of adverse conditions due to the karma of his past deeds, who engages always in your devotional service with his mind, words, and body, and who always offers obeisances unto you, is certainly a bona fide candidate for becoming your unalloyed devotee." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately pointed out, in that verse, the word muktipade is muktipade, but you've changed it to bhaktipade. What is your intention? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, the awakening of pure love of Godhead, which is the result of devotional service, far surpasses liberation from material bondage. For those averse to devotional service, merging into the Brahman effulgence is a kind of punishment. The Bhattacharya continued, the impersonalists who do not accept the transcendental form of Lord Krishna and the demons who are always engaged in blaspheming and fighting with him are punished by being merged into the Brahman effulgence. But that does not happen to the person engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. There are 5 kinds of liberation: Salokya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sharshti, and Sayuja. If there is a chance to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a pure devotee sometimes accepts Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, or Sharshti forms of liberation, but never accepts Sayuja. A pure devotee does not like even to hear about Sayuja Mukti, which inspires him with fear and hatred. Indeed, the pure devotee would rather go to hell than merge into the effulgence of the Lord. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, there are 2 kinds of Sayuja Mukti, merging into the Brahman effulgence and merging into the personal body of the Lord. Merging into the Lord's body is even more abominable than merging into his effulgence. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya concluded, even though he has offered all kinds of liberation, the pure devotee does not accept them. He is fully satisfied by engaging in the service of the Lord. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, the word muktipadi has another meaning. Muktipad directly refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All kinds of liberation exist under the feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore he is known as muktipad. According to another meaning, mukti is the 9th subject, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the shelter of liberation. Atra sarga visargascha, stanam poshanam utayaha, manvantar eshanu kata, nirodho muktir ashrayaha. Since I can understand Krishna according to these 2 meanings, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what point is there in changing the verse? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I was not able to give that reading to the verse. Although your explanation is correct, it should not be used because there is ambiguity in the word muktipad. The word mukti refers to 5 kinds of liberation, but its direct meaning usually conveys the idea of becoming one with the Lord. The very sound of the word mukti immediately induces hate and fear, but when we say the word bhakti, we naturally feel transcendental bliss within the sound. Bhakti. 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 Upon hearing this explanation, the Lord began to laugh, and with great pleasure immediately embraced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya very firmly. Indeed, that very person who had been accustomed to reading and teaching Mayavad philosophy was now even hating the word mukti. This was possible only by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As long as it does not turn iron into gold by its touch, no one can recognize an unknown stone to be touchstone. That's another good one. That's number 279. Upon seeing transcendental Vaishnavism in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, everyone could understand that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. After this incident, all the inhabitants of Jagannath Puri, headed by Kashi Mishra, came to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Later I shall describe how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya always engaged in the service of the Lord. I shall also describe in full detail how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya perfectly rendered service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by offering him alms. If one hears with faith and love these pastimes concerning Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he very soon is freed from the net of speculation and fruitive activity and attains the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 6th chapter, describing the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Go Premanande Haribo! Tahan Vistarita Hoya Pale Premapa Ihan Mali Sheche Nitya Shravanarija. Go Premanande Haribo. So I was asked to take a mandatory break so that other things could get finished and stuff. So I'll see you all in a little bit. Mata today. Yes?
Yeah, I just did an announcement. We are looking for 2 volunteers to help us put away the books, clean the floor, and also to keep the book stand outside. So
2 volunteers, okay.
I got 1. I need 1 more.
1.
I know, Hiten Prabhu, you are working outside, so I'm not looking for you. You are volunteering? All righty. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Prabhu. Oh, the books we were reading.
Anyone checking in online? We're going to